You ever get that feeling that we've forgotten something? Something really, really important about who we are? Well, that unsettling idea is at the heart of a profound warning from the scholar Daniel N. Robinson. He argued that the American Republic is suffering from a kind of collective amnesia, and the consequences, well, they're a lot more serious than you might think. So let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest threat to the American Republic today? Is it another country? Is it the economy? All the political fighting? According to Robinson, it's none of those things. The real danger, he said, is something much quieter, much deeper. It's something we're doing to ourselves.
And here's his answer. The greatest threat comes from forgetting what kind of being man is. Just forgetting what we are. Think about that. The danger isn't some enemy at the gates. It's a kind of amnesia, an internal rot that puts the whole American experiment at risk. So what on earth did he mean by that?
To really get what he's saying, we first have to understand the man who sounded this alarm. Daniel Robinson was, to put it mildly, a rare bird. This guy wasn't just a philosopher. He was a top-tier neuroscientist and a constitutional scholar. I mean, who does that? And it was this crazy, unique combination of expertise that gave him this incredible insight. The American founding wasn't just a political revolution. It was a moral and, a metaphysical event, built on a very specific, very powerful idea of what a human being actually is.
And this brings us to a central warning. For Robinson, civic ignorance isn't just about not knowing the three branches of government. No. It's about forgetting the entire philosophical foundation of the Republic. He believed that when we forget the why behind it all, we lose the ability to govern ourselves. And that creates a vacuum that tyranny is always happy to fill.
So, what was this original idea that Robinson says we've forgotten? Well, the founders actually had a name for their blueprint. They called it moral science.
Now, moral science might sound a little old-fashioned, but stick with me, because this is the core of everything. It's the idea that politics isn't just a game of power or opinion. It's grounded in the reality of human nature. The founders genuinely believe there's a moral order to the universe, one that we can actually understand with our reason. And good politics for them meant aligning our laws with that real moral order.
Here's a way to think about it that just kind of blows your mind. For the founders, law wasn't something they invented out of thin air. It was something they discovered. They believed they were uncovering these timeless, universal principles of justice and liberty that were already woven into the fabric of reality itself. You know, what the Declaration of Independence calls the laws of nature and of nature's God.
And this is the key to the whole thing. The entire system is built for a very specific kind of person. It assumes that you and I can use our reason and our conscience to figure out right from wrong. It assumes we're not just, bundles of appetites, but that we are rational, moral beings capable of self-government. And Robinson just nails it with this quote. The success of this whole experiment, this whole republic, depends entirely on the character of its citizens. If we're no longer fit for life under law, if we lose our own moral compass, then the Constitution, as amazing as it is, just becomes a piece of paper.
Okay, so if that was the original blueprint, what happened? Where do we go off the rails? Robinson had a very specific diagnosis for how this whole foundational understanding started to just crumble away.
He pointed the finger at something he called scientism. Now, it's super important to understand this is not an attack on science, not at all. Scientism is the belief that the scientific method is the only way to know anything. It's when fields like psychology, neurobiology, and sociology started to redefine us. We were no longer seen as rational souls, but more like complex biological machines, products of our environment, or just a bundle of conditioned responses.
And you can see the clash right here. It's just a stark contrast. On one side, you have the founders' view. We are rational souls, moral agents, active participants in our own lives. On the other side, the modern view, Robinson warned us about. We're a machine, a product of processes, an object to be managed by experts. It's a fundamental, world-altering shift in how we see ourselves.
And here is the absolutely devastating consequence of that shift. The Republic, the Constitution, the whole shebang was built for the person on the left. But our culture, our education, our sciences, they all started telling us we were the person on the right. So we kept all the old words, rights, liberty, freedom, but we forgot what kind of being they were supposed to belong to.
So what? What's the big deal? What happens when a whole society starts to forget what it means to be human? Well, this isn't some abstract dorm room debate. Robinson laid out 4 very specific, very real, and frankly, very chilling consequences.
First,
law changes. It stops being about a search for real justice. Once it's cut off from that moral anchor, it just becomes a tool for social engineering. It's about policy management and population control, not a search for what is truly right.
Second, our very idea of rights gets warped. They're no longer seen as these profound truths about our nature, endowed by our Creator. Instead, they become social conventions or personal preferences, or worst of all, privileges that the government can grant or take away. Third, and this is a big one, education transforms. Instead of its classical goal of forming virtuous, truth-seeking citizens, it starts to focus on producing technically skilled workers. People who can serve the system, sure, but who lack the moral and philosophical compass to ever really question it.
And finally, all of this leads to a new kind of person. The active, self-governing citizen of the founding vision is slowly but surely replaced by the passive consumer or the compliant subject, someone to be entertained, medicated, and managed by a class of bureaucratic elites.
Okay, that is a seriously grim diagnosis. But Robinson wasn't just a critic shouting about the problem. He actually believed there was a path back, a way to recover what we've lost.
He laid out a two-step path to restoration. First step, metaphysical clarity. We have to be bold enough to say, no, our laws and rights aren't just things we made up. They are rooted in the reality of what a human being is. And second, moral formation. We have to start educating for character again, creating citizens who are self-knowing and actually capable of seeing that moral order in the world. The recovery, he said, has to start in our heads and our hearts before it can ever happen in our politics.
This final quote from Robinson just perfectly captures what's at stake. He reminds us that liberty isn't just doing whatever you feel like doing. That's not liberty, he says, that's license. And license always ends in destruction, because true, lasting liberty requires virtue and self-knowledge. If we forget who and what we are, our very pursuit of freedom will, ironically, lead to our own enslavement.
So at the end of the day, Robinson's warning leaves us with a really challenging choice. The American system was built on a profound and, let's be honest, a demanding idea of what it means to be human. If that idea fades, the system simply cannot hold. But this isn't something that's just happening to us. It's a choice we're making every day. So the real question he leaves for us is this. The founders built a republic for a certain kind of person. What kind of person are we choosing to be?